Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Credit Chat. I'm Rod Griffin, Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. I'm here to answer your questions about credit reports, credit scores, fraud and ID theft, all of those things that can affect you and that Experian may be able to help with. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask. I'll try to stick around for about 30 minutes and do my best to answer the questions that you have. If you have questions, I know other people have the same ones, so we'll be able to help more people get the information they need, and that's what this is all about. So Amat Sila, thanks for joining, or Sila, thanks for being here. Mark SR, thanks for joining the chat today. If it's your first time, welcome. If you're joining again, bring your questions to the table. We want to answer them. The whole point of doing this is that we are able to address your questions directly and help you get the information you need to make your credit reports and scores better, and to be able to use those things that they can seem really confusing, take that confusion away so that they are a financial tool for you and not something that feels like a financial borrower. So Juicy Spirits, good to see you again. Thanks for joining. And we don't want your reports and scores to be a barrier. We want them to be there for you when you need to apply for credit or other services to get that service you need and be able to walk in with confidence and know that's going to work for you. And that's the way it really should be. So if we can help answer the questions you have, we want to answer. So feel free to ask. No reason to hold up. No need to hold up your hand. Just text or tweet your question. I'll do my best to answer. Usually I have an answer. I've been with Experian for, it doesn't seem possible, 22 years. So I picked up a little bit along the way, and it's really cool that we're able to use this platform to answer your questions. You know, I always tell people I can do death by PowerPoint as well as anybody in the corporate world, and I really don't want to. I want to be able to answer the questions you have, talk to you about the things that are important for you and that you're facing and the challenges you're having. That also helps us learn from you about what we need to work on and to develop new products and services and resources and tools that can help you. If, for example, Dad with lots of D's, and I know that sound, and exactly where all the D's come from, and then it's how much money do you need usually. But thanks for being here. Make sure I'm saying that. Lisa Lap 123, does it have a negative impact on your score if you pay a collection account every month? No, it wouldn't. So if you're paying a collection account, most of the time when a collection account is reported, it will show the original account and show that it's charged off, and then the new collection account with the balance that's due, and then it will show open. Typically doesn't update to show payments on time or late, but if you're making those payments, you're reducing that balance. The balance might be reported lower each month, but what's really important is once you've paid off that collection, if you can pay it a little bit each month until it's paid off, make those payments. When it's reported to Experian as paid, the account status will be updated, and at that point, when your credit scores are calculated, that paid collection may no longer affect the scores. So FICO 8 and 9, VantageScore 3.0 and 4.0, the newest scores and the most commonly ones used today, will exclude a paid collection. So if you pay it off, that's going to be really helpful. So making those payments on time certainly won't hurt your credit scores. It can help them, and certainly, if not in the short term, in the long term. So doing exactly the right thing if you can pay them down. Absolutely a great thing to do. SDJ Ton, thanks for joining. 557, Dave Alvarado 67, good to see you. I am MJ Sharma, thanks for being here. If you have questions, please feel free to ask. I'll do my very best to answer. If you post a question and I don't get to it right away, it's not because I'm trying to ignore it. I may have missed it. Repost. I also have colleagues who are kind of watching, will help remind me sometimes. So be sure to ask. Don't be shy about asking. If you have an issue, other people are having the same issues. I've probably been through them too in years past. So please do ask, because it helps inform other people. Sobachka 158, thanks for joining. Lyndon Baptiste, thanks for being here and being part of the chat. God is my one, thanks for being here as well. Does it look better on your credit report if you pay collection accounts in full, or is it okay to settle? Ideally, if you can pay it in full, that's the best thing to do. A paid collection, as I said, will be reported as such. So it would show paid on the credit report. That means it's paid in full, and that's going to have the most impact and most positive impact. Settled means that you negotiated a repayment for less than you originally agreed or less than was owed. That, if it's not a collection account, if it's a standard account, will have a negative impact. If it's a collection, may not be quite as good, quite as positive. Settled means that you no longer owe it, which can then help you get back on your feet. So there's always discussion around, should you settle accounts or not? And the answer is it really depends on your situation. Settling accounts and debts, whether it's active accounts or collections, will have a negative effect on scores in most cases. But if it enables you to then reestablish your financial health, get back on your feet and start catching up and reestablishing your history, it might be the right thing to do. It's sort of one of those near last resort options, but it's an option that's out there. So it won't help your scores, at least not in the short term. Paid is the best option if you can. Sharon Go 416, thanks for being here. I am MJ Sharma. Is 725 a good FICO score? Yes, it is, actually. The average FICO score is about 704, which is actually higher than it's been for a number of years. But if your scores are above 700, that typically means that you are in what we think of as a prime category. So if you're at 700 or above, it may be low prime. The closer you are to 750, that's what we would consider high prime. If you're 725, you'll probably qualify if you apply for a service or an account. You may not get the best rates. That's going to be the difference there. So if you apply, you may not get the best rates with scores around 700. But if you get above 750 and higher, typically you'll get the best terms and the best rates. That's kind of the rule of thumb. It may not always be the case, but 725 is a pretty solid score. Tennis Pasmare, if I probably said that entirely wrong, but I tried. Thanks for being here. HOC 8612, thanks for joining. If you're just jumping on, I'm Rod Griffin. I'm Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. This is Credit Chat. I try to be here every Tuesday and Thursday, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern, just to answer your questions about credit reports and credit scores and fraud and identity theft and all of the things that go along with those issues that Experian has expertise in, because we want to answer your questions so that you can get the information you need to be successful and address the challenges you might be having, or to understand what you need to do and how to make things better or improve over time, rather than just kind of general information. So it really helps us get to your specific needs, and that's what's exciting. I am MJ Sharma. What options does Experian offer to boost FICO? Thanks for teeing that up. Boost is a great word. If you haven't checked already, go to Experian.com/boost, and when you do, you can add your cell phone payments, positive cell phone payments. Always stress that. It's your positive cell phone payments, your positive utility payments to your credit report. If you pay them through a checking account or savings account, or what we call a demand deposit account, you give us permission to go into that account, capture that payment each month, pull it into the credit report, and add that as a positive account. What we're seeing is that people are on average having an increase of about 10 points or more, and if they're able to pull in those accounts, and if you have a thin file, fewer than 5 accounts in your credit report, for example, we're seeing average increases of more than 13 points, and we're also seeing about 2 out of 3 people improve their scores. So it's entirely permission based. You give us permission to go into the account. Actually work with an organization called Finicity to capture the account, so we're not actually going directly into your bank account either. As Experian, we work with Finicity. They capture that payment information, return that payment information to us, and we add it to the credit report. And if you change your mind, decide you don't want to do it, we'll stop. So it gives you complete control. So that's one of the things we're doing that's really new, really innovative. It's the first time that anyone in the credit reporting industry has given you control over the information you add to your credit report. And it's positive information. In the past, utilities and cell phone companies, telecoms, did not report positive information. They don't, but you are able to do so yourself directly now. They would report the negative information often, though, so it would hurt you, but you didn't get credit for doing the right thing and paying on time. So we know that is a good sign that you're a positive credit risk, and believe it should be included in reports. And we've done years of research to show that it doesn't falsely skew scores for people who may have poor scores because they are not paying their bills on time and not managing their credit well. But for people who have 1 or 2 accounts, they're just starting out, or they've been rebuilding their credit and are doing the right things, that boost will help show that they are a good credit risk and move you in the right direction. So we're really, really excited about Experian Boost and what it's doing for people and the feedback we're getting. You can also add your positive rent payments. If you go to Experian or search Experian Rent Bureau or Experian rent payments. You can find out how to work with your landlord. They can report your positive rent payments to Experian. We've also seen that help almost 100% of the time. People improve their credit scores, establish a credit history. So really important. Do you verify info with actual creditor or use someone like LexisNexis? So the verification is that you're giving us permission to go to your bank account and capture that actual payment. So the payment has to say that it's to the specific utility provider. So it would say XYZ Electricity or whatever the name is. We capture that payment. Clearly you made it because it's in your bank statement. It came out of your checking account and that payment's made. So that's how we verify that that positive payment was made, and it goes into the credit report. So it's, people hear about self-reported. It's not exactly self-reported. It's not just you saying I made the payment, so put it in my report. It's that we're able to work with Finicity and Experian's able to capture that payment. So when you're talking about, disputes, I probably missed a question in there somewhere. So when you dispute information, we go back to the source of that information. The source of the information has an obligation, legal obligation under federal law to review their records and then to accurately respond to that dispute and tell us that either the information is accurate as reported, it should remain, that it should be updated in some way, or that it should be removed. So the legal mandate is for the source of the information to report accurate information and respond to those disputes accurately. So they have to go check their records and verify whether or not it's accurate. With Experian, we have membership requirements. So they pay us to report information, and it requires accurate reporting. If we find that they're not reporting accurately, we would discontinue them, allowing them to report. We don't want people reporting to us who are violating federal law. So the onus, as they say, is on the source of the information. Our responsibility is to accurately represent what lenders tell us is in their records. If you disagree with the results of a dispute, we strongly encourage you to add what we call a statement of dispute to your credit report. It says, I disagree with the results. Here's why. And you can upload documentation that would be provided with your report along with that statement every time it's requested. So it lets you tell both sides of the story. So that's how that process works. Qazerily, Quazerly, thanks for joining. Joe, 1968, good to see you. Welcome to Credit Chat. Thanks for being here again. Good friend, thanks for joining and being here. If you're just joining, I'm catching my breath. I'm Rod Griffin. I'm Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. This is Credit Chat. I try to be every Tuesday and Thursday, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern. We're also on Twitter on our Credit Chat on Wednesdays, 2 o'clock Central, 3 Eastern. Tomorrow, and I'm looking over my phone, we're going to be talking about basics about loans. So Loans 101, what do you need to know about applying for a loan? How do they work? How do you repay them? How are they reported? All of those kinds of things. So hope you can join us tomorrow, 2 o'clock Central, 3 Eastern on Twitter. We have great experts who join us and talk about those sorts of issues. Right now, if you have questions about credit reporting or credit scoring, please ask. Don't be shy. And I can tell you for certain that if you have questions, other people do as well. And we want to make sure that we share information that you can use to improve that credit history, make it a financial tool for you. It shouldn't be a mystery. You should know what's there and be able to use it when you need it to get the credit you need when you need it. So Sharon Go 416, thanks for joining. And again, please feel free to ask. I'm on my way next week to the Jumpstart Coalition for Financial Literacy National Educator Conference. So excited about that. Experian helped launch that conference with a grant 11 years ago, and it's the now premier conference for high school financial educators in the country. There'll be almost 400 educators along with nonprofits and businesses like Experian and others there to help them get information they need to teach our young people about personal finance and how to be successful as adults. So really excited. Love going there. So much energy. Teachers do such a wonderful job. So looking forward to being there next week. This week, I'm going to take a couple days off, spend some time with friends and family at the end of this week. So I won't be here Thursday if you jump on. ABCD EFG Moon 1. Thanks for joining, being part of the chat. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Is there a way to have the past 2 years of rental history reported? How many points is it worth? So Lyndon Baptiste. You can begin having rent payments reported. I don't believe we go back initially. So with rent reporting, if if you talk to your landlord, if you go to Experian, search Experian rent reporting, there's a big long URL that I can never remember off the top of my head. I can't recall, but if you search, you can find rent reporting. Experian explains exactly how to do that. You can talk to your landlord. They can report those positive rent payments each month, whether they have a single unit in their house or a 10,000 unit complex and it's a large apartment management company. They can report those payments. The impact will depend on your unique financial situation, your credit history. Everybody's is a little different. What we do see, though, is that at almost 100% of the time, scores improve when rent payments are reported, and often you'll move up in tier, meaning you'll be able to go up to the next level, qualify for better terms and better rates. So it really can be a powerful tool for you to have it reported. So yes is the answer. You can definitely have it reported. Will we go back 2 years? I'm not sure. With Experian Boost, we do go back 24 months. We'll capture 24 months of payments if it's available from for your utility payments, your cell phone payments. But I'm not sure. I don't believe we do that with rent payments. I think it's from the point they start going forward. So we can't do that retroactively. Sweet UK girl, thanks for joining and being part of the chat today. And if you have questions about credit reporting, scoring, please feel free to ask. Sweet UK girl, if you are in the UK, I have a counterpart there you would probably have to talk to. I can't speak to credit reporting in England or the United Kingdom or other parts of the world, even though Experian is a British company globally. Our global headquarters are in London, England. Your credit reports never cross national boundaries. I work for Experian North America. Our headquarters are in Costa Mesa, California. And your U.S. credit report doesn't go to England, and if you're in England and you move to the U.S., your report doesn't come with you. I always share the story that our current CEO, Craig Boundy, immigrated from the U.K. His credit report didn't come with him. He had to start all over again, just like everybody else. So even though he's running our business, he had to reestablish his credit history here in the U.S. What are the secrets? I got an itch on my lip. What are the secrets of credit reports? There really aren't any. And people ask that. When you get your credit report, and you get it free at annualcreditreport.com, you can get it free when you subscribe to an Experian or enroll in Experian's credit reporting or credit monitoring services. You can get it free if you are a victim of fraud and identity theft. There are lots of ways to get free reports. When you get that report, you get everything that Experian has in its credit history. So you can see everything that's reported to us. It's completely transparent. When you get a credit score, the credit score represents the information in that report and the risk it represents to making a loan to you, or it could be you're getting a mortgage or a car or a credit card. And those scores can be different from one lender to another, from one type of lending to another, from credit unions to national banks, for example. So those things can differ. And so it's important that the scores can be different, but you can get, every time a score is generated, a series of what we call risk factors are generated. They tell you exactly what from your credit report most affected those credit scores. So you can look at your credit report and know exactly what you need to work on. So really aren't any big secrets. Everybody wants there to be. The two things you have to do to have good credit reports and good credit scores is pay your bills on time every single time. Keep your credit card balances as low as possible. And that's really it. There really aren't any big secrets, as much as people would like to. If you're doing those two things, everything else that goes into scores kind of follows on that. You're building a longer credit history as you use those accounts. You're building a mix of history as you open new things over time. You're probably not applying for lots of new accounts all the time. You're not missing payments. You're not having collection accounts added. So you're doing all the right things if you're paying your bills on time, keeping your balances low. It just really aren't any big secrets. Everybody wants there to be. The things you might want to avoid. One example is if you're planning to make a major credit purchase, it's probably better to not close, say, a credit card account, in particular if you're planning to buy a house or a car in the next 3 to 6 months. And I apologize for my dogs. Perfect timing. I think the FedEx man is here. So real life is happening. It seems to go that way. So I apologize for that. It's a live video. So closing an account means you'll lose the available credit limit, which will cause your utilization rate to go up, which can cause your scores to dip a bit. So you need to recover. Yeah, and I have two great little dogs, so and they're little dogs, and they're usually absolutely quiet unless somebody knocks on the door, which just happened. Closing an account, back to where I was. If you close an account, a credit card account, you lose the utilization. Now I'm tongue-tied. You lose the available credit limit for that account, which causes your utilization rate to go up, which causes your scores to dip a bit temporarily. So if you're planning to make a major purchase, best to leave it open until you've completed that. Get the keys to the house or the car. Make sure that's all done before you close an account to look at your situation. So, that's really, those are the big three things that we hear about. Allen, Texas is actually where I'm based. That's where our national call center. So if you're calling for assistance, you actually talk to somebody in Allen, Texas. Our database and computer systems are in Allen and McKinney, Texas, but our corporate headquarters in North America in California. So yes, your your disputes, those sorts of things go to Allen, Texas. That's where our consumer assistance operations are located, along with some sales things and other things. You can't walk in and get your report in Allen. So if you're thinking about driving to Texas, great place to visit, but you can't walk in there. Highly secured facility, and it's a call center. So we don't have any way to help individuals there. But that is where the disputes happen, and mail processing and all of those kinds of things. Where was I? Any advice on federal school loans? Difficult. The college is getting more and more expensive. More and more people are going to college. I think that's a good thing. The expense is a challenge. Know that if you're applying for student loans of any kind, understand that you may not have to take every penny they offer. So limit them as much as you can. Use all of the resources you can to offset any debts you have to take on. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I did it the student loan route. My parents didn't know any different. I didn't either. And so, I had basically, when I graduated from college almost 30 years ago, which doesn't seem possible, I had about the average student loan debt for students today. So I was above average with my student loan debt, which is not a good thing. But managed to pay it all off, and it took 12 years, 15 years, a long time, but I managed to pay it off, and it's paid for itself. It's led to a great career, led to a much better life than I otherwise would have had. And I think that's the thing we need to think about too when we talk about college costs. Think of it as an investment over 30 years, not as an expense like a car that's a depreciating asset. Not the same thing. So think of it a little differently. We also know that with student loans, and we looked at some data not just a few weeks ago, the average student loan payment today is a little over $300, $323, something to that effect. The average new car payment is more than $500 today, and nobody's calling me and complaining about their car payment. So I kind of look at them and go, if you're worried about your student loan debt, what kind of car are you driving? Maybe you need a different car. Not true for everybody. I understand that there is a crisis especially for people who really weren't ready to go to college or were convinced to go to a school that evaporated and went away, and they took on lots of debt. And they don't have a degree and don't have any marketable skills, and they're strapped with this huge debt. I understand that, but look at priorities in life too. I kind of look at student loans a little differently than a lot of people. Dylan SR, credit reports are the devil. You sound like my dad. Credit was the devil, and for mom, credit was a gift from God. And actually, it's neither one of those things. Credit reports are a tool that helps lenders make risk-based decisions, determine whether or not you'll repay a debt as agreed. You determine what goes into that report based on how you use credit. And credit doesn't mean you have to have debt. So if you have a credit card, you make a purchase every month, you pay it in full, you're not carrying debt, but you can take advantage of the financial resources there. You can get airline miles or points or cash back. Use credit as a financial tool. Debt's a financial problem. Neither of them are the devil or a gift from God. It's about how you choose to make those decisions. So a different perspective there. And credit reports actually, because of our national credit reporting system, enable more people to qualify for credit and enable people to pay less for credit and financial resources in the U.S. than anywhere else in the world. So actually, what the the data says, and we're big data people, obviously, is that they're actually beneficial to people if they use them well and you use it as a financial tool. And that's why I'm here. So I hope that I can help change your mind a bit, take a different perspective, look at the report as a tool that you have available if you use it well, and how to restore it if you've had some difficulty, but realize that it's actually a financial tool if it's employed in the way that it can be. Think about businesses. They use credit as a financial tool. They will borrow money for capital investment to buy equipment and things, and then invest their cash because they can borrow at lower interest rates than they earn returns on their investments. I think we can do that as individuals too. So think of as credit as a financial tool. Take a little different perspective, maybe. Not evil one way or the other. It can be a frustrating thing. Dogs, I love my dogs. And as I said, two little, and they popped up here once or twice. And have actually been on our chats and things a time or two. Can it be conceived that credit cards can be for an emergency? Yes, Juicy Spirits. Credit cards can be for an emergency as long as you realize things like pizza and beer on Friday night is an emergency. So when it can feel that way a lot. So, if you have a credit card and it can absolutely be useful as a tool. If you're not carrying cash. Personal example. Went to a high school football game. My granddaughters are in band and dance and drill team, and I'm in Texas, so you go to high school football games because it's part of who we are. So I was at the football game, drove over just fine, got in my car to leave, deader than a doornail. The battery just quit. I wasn't carrying enough cash. I needed a battery right away. Used a credit card to make the purchase, turned around the next day and paid it. So that kind of purchase makes sense to me as an emergency. Got to get home one way or another, get that battery so I get the car home. But have the cash in savings, so you have that emergency savings. But you may not be wanting to carry around several hundred or a couple $1,000s in cash if something happens. So if you're using it as specifically an emergency, it can be. You just have to make sure you define what an emergency is, because I talk to people and say, well, I need a new pair of shoes really bad, so that's an emergency today, but not maybe really. So, it's that kind of wants, needs, temptation. You make sure you have that and make it clear as to what an emergency is, and you stick to that. It's always that sort of self-commitment issue too. You paid off a credit card account you're talking about. So if you pay off a credit card account, it will report a zero balance, would still be open. I wouldn't have any debt associated with it, but you can pay it each month. We always recommend that you use a credit card every month or so. Make a small purchase, $20, $30 or less. Turn around right away and pay it. So you're not paying interest rates, you're not paying fees, but you have activity in that account, because you'll need that activity to help your scores and for it to be reported. So it's a good idea to make a small purchase periodically and then pay it in full. Just turn around and pay it off. That's kind of the ideal situation. And then that card's there for you to use to take advantage of it, rather than feeling like the credit's taking advantage of you. Currently in debt forgiveness program for 20 years, still affecting your credit. It can, if you're in a program like that, over time it will benefit you, and I hope that it's reducing your debts over time. You're making sure that as part of that program, the accounts are being reported as paid on time and current, and it can help you recover. Sometimes it takes a long time, and depending on what your issues were over time. So difficult, I understand, and it can be a long time. When I think about my student loans, I refinanced, I consolidated. It took me about 15 years to pay them off. So patience is a virtue sometimes when it comes to credit, and it can seem like a long time. Fax numbers. We don't do disputes by fax. And so online, by mail, by telephone, but we don't do fax. And so no, it's kind of the short answer there. Vi56, thanks for joining. Goya 214, being vegan should get more points on a credit score. And I'm not a vegan. I need to eat more vegetables though, for sure. If an account is close to hitting 7 years and the amount is 11K, is it best to pay it forward or let it fall off your credit? It will be deleted 7 years from the original delinquency date of the debt. So if it was late for the first time 7 years ago and you've never been current since, it will be deleted from the account. I would always say it's better to pay it off if you can. for a couple of reasons. One, if you pay it off, it would be excluded from scores maybe a little faster. My voice is just getting scratchy. The other is that if you pay it off, even though it comes off of the credit report, if you go back to that lender in the future and want to work with them, they may still have a record of that in their report, or in their, not in their report, in their records, wouldn't be on the credit report. And that might prevent you from doing business with them because it was never paid. So that, I've heard people tell me that too. So they go back after several years and they find out that lender won't work with them because they still have their own personal records of that relationship. So a couple of reasons, that it may be beneficial to pay it off. Is the average $500 car payment that excellent credit scores get, or is that for below that? So that's the average new car payment. The average new car loan is about $32,000 today. The average used car loan for a certified pre-owned car is about $20,000. So not that much less, which surprised me when I saw that. That's what it is. So, it would be anyone who qualifies. So it wouldn't necessarily be prime scores, but that's just the average generally. So I don't know exactly what scores, where it fell in that range for those. If you have poor scores, you're typically going to have to pay higher interest rates. If you're getting a loan for a larger amount, you're probably going to cost more each month, not less. So going to be the challenge. That's where credit reports scores actually save you money if you use them well and have strong scores. You can pay lower interest rates, pay lower fees. It can save you money in the long term. Joey Giggles, good to see you again. Thanks for joining. And going really well. If the FedEx guy doesn't knock on the door again and my dogs don't say hello. Fantastic. Boost is working great. Love to hear that. And we love to hear feedback. We think of it's such a unique, and I always hate those kind of cliche terms, but it is groundbreaking. There's nobody else doing it. And glad to hear it's working for you. Currently on student debt forgiveness program for the next 20 years. Yeah, so student loan debt over time, and if you're working in a public sector role and things, they may be able to forgive that debt. So that's good too. I think you have to pay a certain amount back, usually as part of those programs. Maverick, thanks for joining. Am I interested in being a guest on your YouTube channel? Quite possibly. You reach out to our PR group. You can find that online. They can connect you with me. Always interested in how we can share more information with people. So reach out to our PR group. So you go to Experian.com, and the news channel, you can find out how to reach out to them or text, and we may be able to get the information to you through Twitter. I'm not sure. I'll find out. So Lyndon Baptiste, thanks for asking. So it's not dormant. Exactly. So if we go back to the credit card account, if you use it periodically, you don't want it to become dormant. You want that activity. If an account has no activity for a period of time, even though it's still on the report, it may not be included in scores anymore. So you need at least 3 to 6 months of activity in that account and consecutive activity. So it's good to use it to make sure that it's being reported and there's activity there. Otherwise, even though it remains on the report, scores may ignore it because there's no activity, which doesn't help them predict risk. I am MJ Sharma. Thanks for joining and being here. It's always fun to talk, and I usually run a little long. Do credit cards from big banks build credit better than credit cards from non-big banks? No, they're exactly the same. So if you have an account reported to us, credit card from a national bank or a local credit union, doesn't matter. If they're reporting those payments as current, you're making those payments on time, managing it well, same impact, no difference whatsoever. How do you get to 850? Is it possible? Dakota 242424. It is possible. It's unusual. I've actually hit 850 a couple times, so it's kind of important for me to be able to tell you I manage my credit well. So I do what I practice what I preach, as they say. I usually didn't say that I'm below that now, so your scores will go up. You won't stay there if you get there. It's not necessary to be there. I don't really have a goal to get to 850 or to maintain a quote perfect credit score, because there are other scores that go higher than 850 and others that have a high score that's lower than 850. So the reality is, if you have scores that are good enough, that's what matters. If you're 1 point above a lender's threshold for giving you the best rates, it doesn't matter that you have any more points. So basically, if you're 1 point above or you're 30 points above that cutoff, you get the same terms. So it's about managing your credit well, doing common sense things. You can get there. It takes time. Keep your balances on your credit cards as low as possible. Pay them in full, ideally, each month. Don't apply for a lot of new credit over time. Most people don't apply for new credit maybe once or twice a year, and so you see very few inquiries. Inquiries actually have less impact than anything else in a credit report. And I can tell you, the last time I applied for a card, my score dropped for 3 points, and it stayed down 3 points for about 3 months, and then came back up to where it was. So it's usually pretty minimal. So just be conscious of how you use credit. Common sense kind of rules the day, and you'll be good to go. And eventually you'll get there. You tend to, most people kind of look more like me, and when they get that kind of high score, they have a lot more gray hair, longer history as a result, those kinds of things. You have a poor score. What company suggest me to set up a secured credit card? Now, I can't suggest a specific company, but what I can advise is go to a local credit union, for example, or a national bank. You can also search Experian. The Experian's credit advice, I think we recently had a column, if I remember right, a blog post about who to look for. We can help match you to companies, but a local credit union is a great place to start. They'll have you make a deposit in an account. Just ask them if they report that secured account to the credit bureaus. If they don't, it's not going to help you build the credit history. If they do, it's going to work just like a credit card. Because it's secured, sometimes if it's reported as a secured account, it may not have as much positive impact, but it's still going to be positive, still get you going in the right direction. But start with a local credit union, local bank, and ask them what they can offer. Cute Nancy, how much credit do you need for a house? So it's not really how much credit you need. It's do you have a good credit history, and are your credit scores strong enough to get the best terms and rates, or the rates you need? And so the best way to find out is request a copy of your credit report and get a copy of your credit score. You can do that through Experian's app. You can go to annualcreditreport.com and get a free report, and then purchase a score. I think they're about $15 today these days. And you'll get a FICO 8 score from Experian. And I believe on both now. It was a VantageScore if you were purchasing VantageScore 3.0 potentially. Both real scores will give you a good sense of where you stand in terms of risk. You'll need to look at what those scores mean. Typically, lenders today want to see scores in the mid 700s to get the best terms. You may qualify with lower scores, but probably have to pay more. You may have PMI, those sorts of things. Just be aware of that. But check that report, know what's in it, get the risk factors to go with that score. I say that a lot, but it's the most important thing I can tell you to do, because you'll know exactly what you need to work on, and you'll know where you stand. So that gives you the best place to start. Is it better to bank with a credit union than a regular bank? Neither. I mean, both are good depending on your particular needs, the services they provide, and the kinds of account assistance you need, your personality. Some people like to work with big banks. Some prefer working with a local credit union. They feel like with a credit union, it may be more personal service, smaller customer base, and fits your needs better. So both are good. Both offer different services. Credit unions are nonprofit, and so there are different regulations that govern them and the kinds of services they can provide. So both are perfectly legitimate, perfectly good places to go. 750 or above is great. No, yes, very good. 750 is kind of that threshold where you kind of shoot for. If you're above 750, in most cases, I can't say all, but in most cases, you'll qualify for the best terms, best rates, kind of the way it works. In most situations, some may require a little higher score to get the best terms. Others maybe not quite so high, but that's kind of the target we usually say to shoot for. Is it wise to have at least 10 credit cards? Pro CLM? No. Doesn't mean it's unwise either. You don't need 10 credit cards. In order to have good scores, we recommend you have 1, maybe 2 credit cards. You don't need more than that in order to have good scores. You may need more than that as a consumer based on how you use them. So if there are stores you shop at and by using their card you get a discount or things like that, might make sense, and then pay them in full. And so you're taking advantage of those incentives. But you don't need that. 1 or 2 will do just fine. And that's all you really need. Fist for Fun, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Why are your Vantage scores different than your FICO scores? Lyndon Baptiste. You're going to hate this answer, but it's because they're different. They're 2 different scores. So it's kind of like saying Ford and Chevrolet. So Ford and Chevrolet both make cars. similar things, but they're different companies. Same thing's true with FICO and VantageScore. FICO is a credit scoring company. VantageScore is a competing scoring company. They both create credit scoring algorithms or models. They help lenders predict risk, but their scores operate and their algorithms operate a little differently. That's so for some lenders, one may be more effective in predicting risk for their particular customers. VantageScore is a newer model. There's some advantages that they'll point out. FICO, same thing. They've been around a long time. They're a strong competitor. But that's why they're different scores. And so the way they weigh the information in your report's a little bit different. As a result, your scores can be a little bit different. Usually, even though they're different numbers, they're pretty close in most cases, and they almost always mean the same things in terms of risk. So I always go to, don't try to compare the number to number. Instead, compare meaning to meaning. So if you have a VantageScore and you have a FICO score, look at the description of the score and what it means in terms of risk, and I think you'll find that they will almost always say the same thing, that you're a good risk, you're poor risk, you're somewhere in between. So compare the meaning more than you do the numbers themselves, because they almost never match. People can have a 760 FICO with 2 accounts, but no depth. Yeah, so they have some depth. And how long have they had those accounts? What kinds of accounts are they? And are they using them well? So scores are very sophisticated, and everybody's unique. I've seen young people in their mid-20s have better scores than people in their 60s, just because they use credit differently and do a better job of managing the credit they have. It's not about how much credit you have. It's about how you manage the credit you have available to you. So 2 accounts that you've had used well, you might do perfectly well, might have really good scores. So that's what that's all about. Been ran a little bit long today, but thank you for all the great questions and all the great conversations. If you're just joining, I'm about to jump off, but I'm Rod Griffin, Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. I try to be here Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern. I won't make it this Thursday. I'm going to be out of the office, but join us tomorrow, 2 o'clock Central, 3 Eastern, and we're here on Twitter chat. So our credit chat on Twitter. You can learn more at ex.pn/creditchat. Bankrolls, clean. Go ahead. Ask one more question. I'll take one more question, or maybe 2. Low credit limits is not adverse. No. So credit limits are the issue is utilization rate. So if you have a low credit limit, you need to use the less of a balance. So you want the utilization rate to be high. The credit limit itself isn't an issue. Higher credit limits are often helpful in maintaining a lower utilization rate, so that's the challenge there. Just wanted to give a couple more seconds to see. Knockout Need 904, thanks for joining. Abby Sewell, thanks for joining. As I'm about to sign off, I was going to see if Bankroll Scene Clean said he wanted to ask a question or she wanted to ask a question, was going to give him a chance. I'm not seeing it come in. So if we're not seeing that question, if you don't get it, aren't able to ask, I will be back a week from Thursday, because I'm out and through next Tuesday. Now, maybe not then. I'll be at the Jumpstart Coalition. I'll be back at some point here to answer your questions. Again, join us tomorrow, 2 o'clock Central, 3 Eastern. We're going to talk about Loans 101 and basics of a loan, how credit reports and scores can affect them, what you need to know when you go in to apply for a loan. That should be a lot of fun on Twitter, 2 o'clock Central, 3 Eastern. I'll be back on Credit Chat on Periscope in the near future. Appreciate so much all of you joining, all the great questions, and sharing all of the great information. You can learn more at ex.pn/creditchat. Take care, everybody, and I will talk to you all very soon.